Good evening to you. Hello. Yeah, I signal you out about 10:01. USS North America.
And welcome in, everybody, for the second edition for today, the 11 p.m. live stream for Field Day 2020. So we've had several hours on the air. I know I'm tired. I would imagine everybody else is tired. And you should be. That's kind of part of the deal if you've been working at home in a contest. So, Mark, welcome in. How's the bands been for you?
I'll tell you, not bad. People earlier in the afternoon at the 4 o'clock live stream complained a little bit about propagation, but I spent a good part of the afternoon on 6 and 10 meters on FT8, and they were wide open. In fact, just before we started the live stream, I worked Wyoming on 6 meters on what looked like a dead band. FT8.
Just never know, do you?
You just never know. And FT8 is great because you don't need a lot of signal to make a contact. I was down earlier after dinner on 40 and 20 meter sideband, and there were lots of signals. So there are a lot of people getting on, making a lot of contacts, and I don't think that propagation has slowed anybody down. I think there's enough of it. Probably later this evening, I'll hook up the big 160 meter loop and see what we can hear. Let me turn that down. That's FT8 on 6 meters. Yeah, I mean, conditions haven't been great, but they haven't been bad either. And sometimes you have to look around, transmit on a dead band, because you know what they say, if everybody is listening, then the band appears to be dead. Somebody needs to call. You just got to give it a try sometimes.
Yep, that's correct. That's correct. Yeah, I've went back, got on crap. I don't even remember. I think I popped in on 10 for FTA for a little bit. Maybe not. Hang on. I have the, I can look here. I did. I made 17 contacts on FT8. 10. I've pretty much all been FT8 except for just a few minutes on sideband on 40. But really, I had better luck, believe it or not. And I know some people probably haven't, but FT4 on 20 meters, FT8 on 20 was just so congested. And I tried for a good solid hour trying to get through to people. And you get through some, but it's just like beating your head against the wall. And, you know, I leave mine where if I find an open frequency for transmit, I'll just lock the transmit frequency. Yep. That way you just move the receive. You always transmit the same place. So you try to keep that whole. I don't think a lot of people pay attention necessarily to the waterfall sometimes. And so they'll just, you'll look up there every once in a while and see you're getting covered up. So you got to move. So I went up and did some FT4. And there's still a lot of people up there and it's a lot quicker pace and it wasn't as congested. So I actually had more luck there. In about an hour or so, I did about 21 Qs. Maybe not quite an hour. I don't know. I don't know the breakout quite yet, but it is a lot faster pace. I know with the logging software I use, N1MM, that it will keep up with your pace. And I noticed it was shot up. Yeah, when running FT8, it was around 25 Qs an hour. And then when I moved up to FT4, it was up to, I saw it go up to about 56. So, I mean, if you got them lined up, it's about every 45 seconds you're putting one in the log with FT4. When it goes into the log, not quite. People say 73, but really it only takes about 2 transmit cycles to get one to go in the log.
I'm not. If you're doing 50 plus an hour, that's a little more than a minute per Q. That's pretty good on FT8. Of course, I was running a wire antenna, ZS6B KW, and it doesn't have some of the advantages that a beam has. So for me, the rates were a little bit lower, probably 15 or so on FT8, maybe 20 on FT4. The problem that I had with FT4 is that FT4 is not as sensitive, so you need stronger signals, and it would be helpful to have a beam antenna that you could point at the signal source and increase the signal strength. But right now, I don't have an HF beam up. I've just got the enormous big 7-element beam on 6 meters, and took the tri-bander off the tower so I could focus on 6 meters this summer. So running a wire antenna, FT8 actually was slower because of the loss of sensitivity. I did better on, FT4 was slower. I did better on FT8 because you can copy people at minus 22.
Right.
You don't do that much on FT4.
No, but, and, yeah, if you got a beam, I think, let's face it, in a contest, it's going to be the loudest is the one that gets through. Just because you can copy them at minus 20 doesn't mean you're ever really going to get, the other guy, because somebody's going to walk over you or whatever. Then I think actually for a true contest, FT4 is probably a little better situated just for the pace. And yeah, you're not as lower signals. But like what you found on 6 is you actually need that, and you can actually find that the band is a little bit open and you're able to work guys.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm looking right now. It's open to Denver. I just saw Delta Mike 79 come on the screen, and that guy's actually that's spooky. He's actually I don't know that I could work somebody like that because I'm running about 100 watts. Maybe I could work him, maybe not, but yeah, we'll see. I'm just looking. Yeah, maybe 100, 110 watts out. I don't know if that's going to be enough, but we'll find out. Either way, whether you run an FT4 or FT8, both of them, and FT8 to a greater degree, will keep a band open after it's really not usable for sideband. And probably there's a point where you could run FT8 where you can't really run CW. It's just, people, I guess if you have really good ears and you will.
And no noise.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the contact I said I wasn't going to make with 100 watts on 6 meters, I just made on FT8. I'm glad there was, and it was really this guy at the other end's doing the heavy lifting. His signal was up to -5, so he's probably also got a monster antenna and maybe some elevation working for him.
Yeah, that's pretty loud. And I saw some people between FT8 and FT4 that were up at around. I saw one as high as +9, and they weren't local, so it was crazy.
I saw a signal report on 6 meters earlier in the week, +33.
Oh my God! I didn't know the scale went that high. That's nuts.
At that point, you might as well be working sideband. Hell, a little bit more. You could probably work AM.
And we're not knocking AM because we have been known.
We have been known.
After,
I'm not knocking
that to go work some 10-meter AM, and it's fun just because it's kind of a one-off. It's just about 5 degrees off, and it's something different. Why not? Right? We have the mode. Why can't we use it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that you have to remember is AM, at one point, AM was one of the modes. First, there was a mode. People didn't even worry about a mode because there was only one thing. There was telegraphy. And there were actually the first amplitude modulated transmission was probably New Year's of maybe 1908. Reginald Fessenden, I believe.
You weren't there, right?
No, I was not. My bald head and wrinkles notwithstanding, I was not there. He took a car. This is crazy. He took a carbon microphone and hooked it to the DC supply to a Alexanderson alternator. At the time, the only way to generate a narrowband carrier was to use a special alternator that would generate RF, fairly pure sine wave, up to about, 50 kilohertz or so. And so this guy takes a carbon microphone and uses it to vary the supply voltage to an Alexanderson alternator, which gave him an amplitude modulated signal. And there were people that were actually able to copy the music and the speech, and it was
killers.
Somewhere down there. Yeah, at that point, pretty much radio was VLF and LF.
Right.
There was no thought at all given to high frequencies, and the technology didn't exist to create them. It's funny. The guy who really opened the world's eyes to radio was Heinrich Hertz, and he did experiments in the VHF and UHF region. He had special, I think they were Ruhmkorff coils that would generate signals 7,500 to 300 megahertz. And he was able to demonstrate that radio was an electromagnetic wave and all that kind of stuff. And Hertz once he proved that Maxwell was right about electrodynamics, he abandoned that field and went on to something else. In fact, he gave an interview and somebody asked him if he thought that this radio wave phenomenon would ever have a use. And he said, other than showing that Maxwell's theory is correct, no, it's absolutely useless. And unfortunately, Hertz died. He was in his late 30s. He didn't get to see Marconi's experiment. But the whole idea of using short wavelength radio waves, nobody generated anything in the VHF or UHF spectrum again until the 1930s. Basically, Hertz did it in probably 1880 or so. And then it was like everybody forgot what he did, and we had to relearn how to do it. And it wasn't until the 1930s.
It's amazing. The basis for pretty much all mass communications today.
Yeah, well,
no matter what. I mean, even if it's digital, if it's over the air, that's the basis of it, right?
Yeah, it all started with a couple of guys, and Hertz was not one of them. The guy that actually made it work was Marconi. A lot of people diss Marconi. They say, well, he didn't really do this. Tesla did this, and somebody else did that. But what everybody forgets is Marconi was the guy who put the equipment to work. He actually did something with it. He transmitted telegraph messages, and not across the room.
Right.
He started out from one side of his house to another, then out into his backyard, and eventually it was, across the Bristol Channel, and then finally culminated in the big transmission in 1901 from Cornwall to Newfoundland. And Marconi was the guy who did that. Other people fooled around with stuff that looked like radio, but they never really made it practical. They didn't make it work. They didn't make it something that people could actually use. And Marconi was that guy. And then once Marconi finished, other folks, that was really, there were amateurs before there were professionals. In the early 1900s, everybody who had radio equipment was an amateur.
I mean, it was usually how it works out, right?
Yeah.
No matter what you do. Just
and then
it goes back to where we're all a geek about something, right?
Yep. And fortunately, the federal government did not accede to the Navy's request. The Department of the Navy, after World War I, felt that radio was so important as a strategic thing that only the Navy should be allowed to have radio equipment. And they actually wanted Congress to legislate that all radio equipment would be controlled by the Navy. And fortunately, that's not what happened. And then just a couple years after that, some guys at Westinghouse had this goofy idea that you could broadcast things that people would want to hear, which sounds obvious, but in 1920, who knew? And
all right, so to interrupt you there, just because I'm thinking back, did you watch that documentary series History did a few years ago on the men who built America?
I saw one episode, Rockefeller, I think, John D. Rockefeller.
Yeah, he was a big player, in the
petroleum.
They start out with, it was the railroad, right? And the Commodore, the Vanderbilt, and all of that. And then they go into, oil, and then transporting oils, how the railroads went into that. And then they start talking about electricity and how J.P. Morgan, he backed Edison, right? In D.C. and all that. And Westinghouse had
Tesla.
But Tesla worked for Edison, and Edison didn't care about the AC deal. So he went over to George Westinghouse, and it was just fascinating, that type of stuff, that the way that was shot and presented. I think it was about 8 episodes, and they're about 2 hours long each. But I mean, the whole series just had me hooked, and I don't know why, but it was entertaining to watch. And then to talk about how they want to ruin Westinghouse's. So the first time they put somebody in the electric chair, and they want them to do it with AC, to give them a bad name, and then that doesn't work. And then the World's Fair goes with Westinghouse and AC. So J.P. Morgan, knowing he's got a lot more money, just threatens to sue Westinghouse for copyright infringements or patent infringements, and just knows George doesn't have the money. And that's how all this happened. And that you bring up Westinghouse, it's like Westinghouse seems to be, I don't know, maybe a little better on the inventing stuff, or at least picking winners.
Westinghouse understood the advantages of alternating current. Tesla, it was funny, you're right, Tesla worked for Edison, and Tesla actually developed some technology for Edison, and Edison refused to pay him for it. Basically, Edison kept the intellectual property and intended to keep all the royalties, and, paid Tesla literally a few bucks. And Tesla got mad, and Edison said, yeah, well, I'm Thomas Edison. That's how that works. And Tesla gave him the 19th century version of an extended middle finger and left. What Edison didn't realize is what Tesla took with him were some ideas for an alternating current generation and transmission system. And he dangled them in front of George Westinghouse, who saw the potential. Westinghouse saw that being able to transport electricity large distances and not having to have a power plant every 8 or 10 blocks was really going to make electricity take off. And the first big hydroelectric project, the Niagara Mohawk project outside of Buffalo, New York, was alternating current. And it was a smashing success. They ran high voltage lines from Niagara Falls down to Buffalo and electrified Buffalo, New York, which was a big deal. It was the second largest city in New York State. A lot of people lived there. There was tons of industry. And it was an opportunity for people to really understand how electricity could change their lives. Yeah, J.P. Morgan spent some time trying to burn Westinghouse, but in the end, the system was so well thought out, and it was so useful that it was going to be AC, and eventually Edison had to get on board.
Well, it was just fun, interesting watching the oil guys trying to discredit electricity just to protect their business, and just how the progression of innovation. It doesn't matter what they did. So, no, that's just people. You just see it like, no, this is lighting fires inside your house for light is just crazy.
It's often hard for people who are heavily invested in a existing technology to understand an innovation or to even conceive of it, because they're busy exploiting the technology they already have. And you see it over and over again. I
get it, man. You're trying to protect your business, your livelihood, and I get it. And then we went on with the what was it, the monopolies. and Rockefeller said, I call it enterprise. They make you break up all his companies, and he's now majority shareholder in like 5 different companies. And it makes even more money. So it's like, if you get one over on the government, that's pretty good. and now his what is it? The John D. Rockefeller the fourth is what, a senator from West Virginia?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Hey, we got a visitor in. You want to talk some field day?
Yes, we should talk some field day.
All right. Stand by, everybody. Here we go. Welcome in, John, NJ4Z. He's muted. I don't know why. We will unmute him. John, you there? We can't hear you. You're muted. I think you've muted yourself. Try it again. I don't hear him. Do you hear him, Mark?
No, the mute's off, but still not hearing him.
Yeah. We don't know what you're saying, John. You're just pointing your fingers around. He'll come back in a minute. Oh, God. I swear, it's live, people. We're live. That's what we do here.
That's part of the excitement. We don't actually know what's going to happen.
Never know.
Nothing might happen.
We punch a button and say, God, I hope this works.
Yeah. Hey, dude, watch this.
Yeah. He did look pretty comfortable there in the chair. I imagine they got to be beat because, they.
They were up all day.
Hey, there you are, big guy.
All right, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Fabulous.
Okay, sorry about that. All of a sudden, I got a pop-up saying my internet connection lost my mic connection. So I don't know what the heck.
Well, hey,
go figure.
For working off your phone and doing what we're doing, just the fact that you made it on is amazing.
You ain't kidding. Well, I'm sitting here in the EMS trailer. I was working on 80 here, and the generator ran out of gas, so that's what I was doing, fueling the generator with Steve holding the flashlight while we were waiting for you guys to get back in here. So,
can you want to give us the tour real quick?
Sure. Okay, so we're in the Fort Mill EMS trailer. The station here, 7300, little laptop, and an MFJ tuner. I'm on the 160 loop out here. You can see the stretcher behind me and the gearbox. It's pretty dark out in the world out here, so I can't take you to see Steve's station because I'll trip over some, I'm sure. But so we're here in the EMS trailer having fun. I've got 504 contacts on this station today so far.
Wow.
So yeah, we're rolling. I think Steve's got 3 something over there. The big thing that we're finding, the big effect has been the 1D stations. Holy Moses, there's so many 1Ds out there, and a lot of these guys are running. I don't know if they're running power, but they're running beams for sure, and they're absolutely smoking us little guns out here in the field.
Yeah, I think most of the people I have worked have been 1D. A couple of guys on battery, but yeah, I think you're probably right. They're running beams. It's making the guys actually out in the field using temporary antennas a little hard on them.
Yeah, well, I mean, you you got all these guys out, running the 1Ds, and they're calling CQ. So, normally we'd be calling CQ from the field, and I've been trying, but it's hard to find a space right now. There's so many stations on the air.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
There is a lot of, holy crap. People are calling CQ Asia now on 6 meters, Brad.
Asia?
Yeah. Guys in 7 land, I don't need the grid, but they're trying to work Japan.
Who?
I don't need to see if Alaska shows up.
What band?
On
6
6.
meters.
On 6?
Yeah, 6 is still open.
Holy smoke! And obviously it's got to be FT8 because you're watching the screen. So
yeah, it's FT8.
Well, that's okay. Everybody does on 6 meters anymore. It's FT8.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so we got that big 160 loop. Once you guys get there, the playing field, 40 and below, the playing field should start to equal out because most people are going to be running wires, so that should actually work out a little better for you and level out that playing field.
I've been hopping down to 160 and hadn't been a whole lot of activity down there. So
I would imagine there's probably not for field day. I mean, there's usually not a whole lot of activity on 160 anyway.
Yep.
But especially, for people actually going out, 160 antennas, my God.
Yeah. Well, we figured we'd try it with the full wave loop we got out here. It might be okay. I've heard a couple of rag chewers and a couple CW signals, but no other sideband.
Yeah, I think CW is probably going to be your bet there. Even on 80, there's not going to find a lot of sideband.
Oh, there's a ton of sideband on 80 right now.
Really?
Look at the scope. There's a ton of it out there.
Well, that's good.
And there's a ton of FT8 on 160.
A ton of FT8. Well, yeah. Okay, I'll tell Steve to get on the computer and run 160 on FT8 because it ain't happening in here.
I'm looking at the spectrum display, and it's flat from like 1810 to about 1850, but at 1836 or 1840, like 1840, there's just a big cluster of peaks, and it's guys running FT8. But I'm not seeing much sideband or anything else.
I'm curious, John, how's your noise on 160 out there?
It was pretty awful. It was there's some power lines right across the road, so we're getting some juice from them and a lot of thunderstorms and stuff.
Oh yeah, I saw the news. They're calling for they were talking about severe weather tomorrow, so hopefully you guys get packed up and out of there before that rolls in. I'm not sure what time it's supposed to be here.
Okay, I'll check the weather when I get home. I'm going to be leaving here probably in about 30 minutes and head to the house and get a couple hours sleep and then come back out here in the morning. Steve, I don't think Steve's going to be awake much longer. He's he's telling me he's okay. He's been in the bourbon for a bit.
Well,
when he gets back to his station, he needs to get on here so he can show us what else you guys got going.
Oh well, you need to get on here. He says because he wants to see your stations. Brad, Mark.
What frequency is he on? FT8?
Yeah, he's on FT8.
I don't know how to do FT8.
Hey, I'm just.
I think I've made 6 FT8 contacts ever.
Well, I'm just listening on 160. I could. There are a lot of different things.
Let's go sideband. We'll work whatever frequency you want. Let's go sideband.
Well, we can do that when we get done here.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
There's plenty of spectrum. It's not like a lot of folks are on 160. I get it. It's the middle of summer. Let me see. Oh, this is going to be interesting.
How has been the rest of your live stream? Do you have a lot of guys at 4 o'clock? A lot of people at 4 o'clock?
Yeah, we had a few.
Good.
Well, we had 6 of us on at one time, so that's the max. That's a pretty good number.
Yeah,
it was nice that Bill just surprised us out of the blue. He just sent a thing. Yeah. He made a comment, and I just hit him up back there on Messenger, like, "Hey, you want to join?" He came in.
Well, sorry, I had to double. My phone was down to 10%, and I figured I wasn't going to be on my air much longer.
No, you're fine. We talked
for 160
for about another 30 minutes or so, and just talking catching up on some of the stuff?
Well, I'm going to go back on 40 because 40 is long right now to the West Coast.
Yeah, go work 40.
All right.
Steve's going back to 40. 40.
Because we don't have any, like,
West Coast stuff.
7s and 6s are all red.
Okay.
We need them all.
He's going back to work 40. 40's gone long, apparently, so he's heading back in there.
I think he might have had a 40.
Yeah, probably. But when he was out in Louisville, the last business trip up there when he went up for work, he brought back me a bottle of Angel's Envy that he mixed himself in the distillery. And I told him I wouldn't open it until we had a chance to sit and enjoy it ourselves. So I finally said, you know what, I haven't been able to have anybody over to the house. I'll just bring it out here. So we brought it out here last night and had a couple, and he's had a couple belts tonight too. So.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. Mark, what's your beverage of choice for this evening?
Ice water.
Got to stay hydrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just finished. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I did open up the bar, and I thought about I've still got one bottle of Vino Verde left, and thought about cracking that open. But if I do, since Miss Lee has already retired for the evening, I'm going to wind up drinking the whole thing, and that's probably ill-advised. So I thought I would just stay away from it.
A red wine. If I drink a bottle of red wine at night, the next morning is just awful for me. White doesn't seem to do it, but red kicks me in the ass.
Well, this is actually this is white, but I've got probably 30 or so bottles of red too. This our house. There's always plenty of beer, wine, and liquor, which is weird because we rarely drink it.
I know one visitor that will drink it.
Yes, we do have some visitors that like the fact that I have a bar that's open all hours. There's something to be said for that.
You got a bar better than Radio Shack.
Yeah, I'm actually looking across the bench at all those bins. I think of Dirk. That always cracks me up. Well, John, do you have a good field day story to tell us?
From today or from just in general?
Hey, any field day. We don't care.
All right, so you guys remember KK4FT, right? Fred Thompson?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's silent key now. He passed away last year. So last year at Field Day, after you guys visited, we had that big vertical array up and all of that.
It was beautiful.
We're sitting there, and a couple guys were in the trailers working stations, and Ted had his van out there. We had a guy in the van working in the station, and a bunch of us were sitting out there, and this storm came up. And so poor Fred Thompson, he couldn't get around real well. He's sitting there. He's got his oxygen tank sitting next to him. He's got his oxygen in his nose. And bless his soul, here comes the wind. He's sitting under Steve's awning in the trailer. Well, the wind takes Steve's awning and throws it up over the top of the trailer. And the sky lets loose. It is a downpour, probably an inch or two an hour. And here's poor Fred sitting there looking around like, what the heck is going on? And he is just absolutely drenched. 4 of us are holding down the canopy next to it. And everybody's like, we got to get Fred. But nobody would wanted to venture out and leave the canopy because if one of us left it, it was going to be 50 feet in the air. Oh, poor Fred. But we managed, once the wind died down, we managed to get him dried up and sent him home. But, man, it was scary there for a minute. But, that's probably one of the funniest field day stories. You had to see the look on his face. He was so lost. It was like, what the hell just happened? And he couldn't move. He couldn't do anything. So, that's probably the funniest field day story because I've only had 4 field days. This is my 4th one, and the first one was at Nanny's Mountain with the club, and I had been licensed for 2 months. I came out to Nanny's Mountain, and everybody's in ill as hornets because if you've ever been to the top of Nanny's Mountain, there's like 5 feet of room up there. And all the antennas were right up on top of each other, and not one bandpass filter in the group.
Yeah.
So every time somebody keyed up a key or keyed up a microphone, they were interfering with everybody else. And so I was there for about 20 minutes. Said, I don't think this is for me. I'm going home. And so I went home. But the next year was much better, and the last two have been really good.
Nanny's Mountain was a good idea on paper.
Yeah, on paper, most definitely. Have nice elevation, but no room. Now, if they ran 2 alpha with some bandpass filters, no problem. But trying to run 4 alpha and all those stations right on top of each other, forget it.
See, back when I was a member there, and Mark, I guess you probably the same thing. It was always just it was 1 alpha, and that was it. We would set up like out the front, the VHF stuff for just to piddle around. You never worked anybody on 2-meter sideband during field day, but that's all we ever did. Everything was always out of the clubhouse. Except for the one time we went out to Sullivan with that crank up mast out there on the trailer. Yep. And boy, that thing looked impressive when it's up, man.
Well, we've been working on that, trying to get it back in shape, and we haven't managed to finish it with all this COVID mess. But I've got an A3S that we're going to stick on top of that thing if we ever get it done. So we'll have a rotatable beam to put out there to go along with TODAP behind the ambulance.
How's that ambulance working out?
Well, we finally got the title to it with all the COVID mess, of course. Another thing, we couldn't get anything done with the title work. So we finally got that straightened out, and we're going to start working on it next week probably. I'm going to go in and trace circuits and put the lights back in and all of that, and then we'll start mounting radios and those kind of things.
Very nice. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, we got to get the decals on it. We got to get with 4 mil. They're supposed to come get it, put the decals on it, and then we'll finish putting the radio stuff in it. So hopefully, maybe by the fall, we'll be ready to roll it out. Our goal was to have it out here field day, and then, of course, everything happened. So that got kiboshed.
We understand.
Yep. Well, I wish the club members understood.
Well,
I know some are watching tonight probably, and I'm probably going to get heck for this, but I've had a lot of questions as to why it isn't finished yet.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things have gone on. We talked about this briefly in the 4 o'clock show. This year is a dumpster fire. It's just the whole thing is a dumpster fire.
I don't know any other way to describe it.
Yep.
Between so we had the pandemic, we had murder hornets. Now we got some kind of a dust cloud coming in from the Sahara. Riots. I mean, it's just, and to quote somebody from a podcast I really like, it's just the drizzling shits is what it is.
Absolute shit show.
Yeah, yep. The drizzling shits. It's like, oh my God, can we reboot this year? Can we try it again? I'll go back to January and redo all the months if we can just do it right.
Yeah. Go to Orlando, come back from Orlando, and then, everything be normal.
Hey, if I get to go back to Orlando and do that again, hell yeah, I'm in. That was fun.
Well, it's on my calendar for 2021, so hopefully we'll be able to pull it off.
Well, it's supposed to be the national convention for 2021 too, and
yep,
I hope. I really do.
Yeah, we'll hope. We'll see.
God willing, and the creek don't rise. I think I may actually be retired by then.
Well, congratulations. I may join you in that. If I could pull it off, I'd retire this year.
Well, who's going to run the joint if you retire?
What's that?
Who's going to run the joint if you retire?
Well, I don't run. Somebody will do it, and plus, I don't run the thing. I just do my piece.
Well, we know that. I mean, they'll find somebody else in state government to do it. But John, who's going to run your place?
Brad, you could run it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We'll let Tammy run it. There you go. No? Okay.
Whatever.
All right. I'm trying to get you guys in trouble. My fault.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Well, John, I'm going to tell you, you don't have to try hard to get us in trouble.
Nope.
We're never very far from it.
You're kind of like me. You're always 1 foot over the line.
Well, if we don't have 1 foot over the line, we've got both feet on the line.
There's always at least a foot on the line, leaning over it.
Well, like I said, yeah, but most always straddle the line between genius and idiot.
Well, we were kind of talking about that earlier with Tesla and Edison, kind of.
Even that, I'm a big fan of this. I've done a lot of research, read a lot of his stuff, and a lot of books on him. And there's a lot of misinformation about him. But he was well ahead of his time.
Oh, Tesla.
Yeah. Edison, between Edison and Westinghouse, they were absolutely screwed him. But what are you going to do?
Well, I think J.P. Morgan did more screwing than anybody. I think that's really what happened.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's you see it over and over again. People have either a vested interest in what's currently happening, or they don't even understand what's about to come. I think with the thing you have to remember, a big difference between Edison and Tesla was Edison had never really had much formal education, whereas Tesla had gone and studied physics in Europe. And so he understood the mathematics and the theory behind what was going on. Tesla was a guy who understood why things worked. Edison was a guy who was smart in a different way. He could make things work, but he didn't necessarily understand the why. And you saw that real clearly with the current wars. If Edison had understood a little bit more about the theory, he would have realized that he was on the wrong side of it, and that eventually AC was going to be the predominant way we were going to do things.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's either that or you put a power generation station every half a mile.
Well, Edison probably would have been happy to build a crap load of those and charge people a hell of a lot of money for it. But in a country as big as the U.S., that's never going to be practical.
Now, here's a question I got for you, Mark. If they did that the DC thing, what would you power those DC generators with?
Coal.
Coal or oil, right?
Oil.
Yeah, boy, the EPA. That wouldn't fly today, would it?
Well, I don't know that it would have flied then, because you would have had the generating facility very close to a neighborhood. It had to be close to a neighborhood. And I don't care how rich you are and how cool you think electricity is, you don't want a coal-burning power plant 12 blocks from your house. You
never would get the soot off everything.
No.
No.
All right, so Mark,
let me ask you a question. So you're a doctorate in EE. What's your impression of Elon Musk and the Tesla Corporation with their power generation ideas with solar?
Solar power is a bit like commercial fusion. We're always 15 to 30 years away from having all the problems solved, but then new problems appear. Mm-hmm. The challenge with solar is, number one, it's not available all the time. That's a big issue. If you're going to use solar, and we should, it's there, it's free. You have to have a way to store the energy, and that's something that somebody's going to have to work out. I've seen some interesting approaches. that are kind of they're clever but primitive. Out west, what they'll do is they'll pump water up a hill into a reservoir, and then when you get into the dark hours, you run the water downhill through turbines, and you generate hydroelectricity. But there are a lot of losses in that process.
It sounds a little lossy because you're going to be burning a whole lot of power running those pumps.
Yep. Oh, you got to have a big solar farm, and part of the output is dedicated to pumping the water up, so that at other times you can let the water come back down and get hydroelectric. If anybody could figure out what to do with solar power, it might be Musk. I will give him credit. He's the first guy who figured out how to build an electric car that people would buy.
Yep.
Not only
It
just
didn't catch on fire.
Yeah.
Bolt.
Not yet. I mean,
Not yet.
The lithium-ion technology and batteries. My generator guy, who's up on all this, talks about you got the safest type, which doesn't give you as much energy, and then you get the real efficient type, which is not safe as crap.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but they did say Tesla's pretty much about there in the middle, which is probably how you're going to start out. But yeah, the Tesla, it's a car people would buy. It looks good. There's a lot of features on them, and the performance specs are very impressive.
Without a doubt.
Here's the thing about the Tesla automobile. It's a new technology, and there's a lot of room to improve it. On the other hand, internal combustion engines have been with us for over a century, and we have made innumerable improvements to them, and they're probably about as powerful and as efficient and as clean as they're going to get. I don't know how much more you can do. And that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a very thoroughly developed, mature technology, and comparing that to one that's still in its infancy. And the only thing the comparison I would make, and you guys aren't old enough to be really familiar with this. So back in the early days of NASCAR, the car that was winning every single race was the Hudson Hornet. The Hudson Hornet was powered by a flathead inline six-cylinder engine. And that was the technology that goes right back to the beginning of the automotive era. Not very efficient. You were limited in how much power you could produce. It was an easy design to manufacture, but it was not a good design. Overhead valves, particularly with overhead camshafts, multiple camshafts, are much better. And the Hudson guys did everything they could to make that engine work. And for a while, they won races. But in the end, it was a mature technology. It couldn't get much better. On the other hand, Oldsmobile, during that era, came out with something new that no one had offered in the United States. A high-compression overhead valve V8 called the Rocket V8. And within a few years, General Motors cars were winning all the races at NASCAR. And six-cylinder engines weren't used anymore. Everybody eventually went to an overhead valve engine because that was the technology that was new, and now there was a lot of room to innovate with that. And companies like Hudson that didn't jump on
how the loop compares to Dipole. Western Washington, Bloomington. Wow. It's all West Coast. It's nothing but West Coast signals on
40.
On 40, yeah.
Yep, that's what time is it? 11:30. Yeah.
Yeah.
The band's along now. Nothing. You'll hear nothing but 7s, 6s, KH6, KL7.
Yep.
Those are good ones to get.
Pretty soon you start hearing the KHs.
So, Mark, talking about field day stories, what's one of your fondest field day memories?
So here's the dumbest thing I ever did at field day.
Oh, I know where we're going. Go ahead.
Oh, Lord.
You'll love it. You'll love it, John.
I'm going to embarrass you and leave.
Hi, guys. All right, not so close.
Okay.
Social distance.
Anyway,
Saw it.
so this was probably 25 years ago. I was doing, I was doing field day with Y cars out at the clubhouse, and one of the jobs I'd been given was to test all the antennas ahead of time to make sure that everything was working the way it should. And the first thing I did was make sure that we had a working dummy load, because I had some coax that I had to check, and it was suspect. So we had a 6-position coax switch, and 4 of the positions were used for antennas. 1 was vacant, and the 5th position was used for the dummy load. Well, I switched on the dummy load, checked the coax, and then forgot about the switch. So 2 o'clock came, and I was scheduled to operate 2 to 3, and there was a lot of sporadic E on 10 meters. So I got up on 10 meters, and I thought I'd be making contacts, and the band was quiet. And the signals were really weak, but I worked people. And I thought, well, this is weird. You know, it's like there's some kind of ionospheric disturbance. I'm not hearing much noise. People I'm working them, but they're really weak. And thank God there's no noise, because they're S1. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm thinking, maybe there's a problem with the coax. And so I'm looking at the coax. Everything's connected properly. I'm watching all the meters. I'm on the right antenna, the right band. I can't figure out what it is. And then I look more carefully and realize that I'm still switched into that 1500 watt dummy load. And what I had been doing was working people on the dummy load. And I actually made about half a dozen contacts on 10 meters with a dummy load. And I kind of looked at myself and said, this might not be the dumbest thing I've ever done, but it's definitely close. It's in the top 5. And so at that point, once I realized what an idiot I was, I got hooked up to an actual antenna, and all of a sudden there were signals all over 10 meters. They were strong, and I was able to work some people. But it was funny. It was very embarrassing at the time it happened. Now it's absolutely hilarious, and I guess that's the advantage of hindsight. I was mortified at the time, because those guys were pretty competitive back in the 90s, and there was a lot of pressure to make cues, and I had just burned up 20 minutes making contacts with a dummy load, so I had definitely not made good use of my time, nor had I made a whole lot of cues. And I heard about it for a while.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Larry was real impressed, wasn't he?
He was not impressed. He was not mortified. Evidently, he had probably made a mistake like that at one time, because he didn't start screaming at me. But he was clearly concerned about my sanity. He wasn't sure I could be left unsupervised after that.
Could you imagine what Pedro would have said?
Yes, I can.
Oh, John, you never got to experience Pedro. Oh my Lord.
No, Dawn either. So
well, you're better off.
I've heard all the stories about Dawn.
Well, Don was his own guy. Pedro was a character. He said what he was thinking. There were no filters.
No inner monologue.
Yeah.
No inner discussion.
All right. My kind of guy.
Just he was at a Y Cars meeting on a Thursday night. It was in the summer, and he came in. He walked out of the meeting after about 15, 20 minutes. And he walked out, and then he came running back in and started yelling at me. He said, "You dumb son of a bitch, don't you know how to drive? Well, the way you park, I can't get my car out. And, well, if you had a prostate like mine, you'd understand why that was important, because I got about to piss my brains out, and I can't get out of here because the order, blah, blah, blah. And he just went off on me right in the middle of the meeting. So I said, well, I'll get up. But sorry, Pedro. I mean, if I'm in your way, I'll move my car. Like, you know,
My God.
he was wound up.
Love him.
Jeez.
Love
But it
him.
wasn't personal because, I saw him a week later and he was fine. It was just at that moment in time, I had inconvenienced him, and he said what he was thinking.
We've all been there, right? When you got to go.
Sure, I get
That's it.
I dashed out there and moved my car over as quick as I could because I understood. But he said what he was thinking, which was a good thing. You knew where you stood. You knew what was on his mind. You just had to be prepared because what he was thinking might not be something that you were thinking, or worse, it might be something that you didn't want to think, but he had thought it for you, and now he was going to share it. Cool. And he and Don were Pedro.
They were.
Pedro was constantly trying to get Don to be more thoughtful, to think stuff through. And that was not Don's strong suit. And they would go at it. They would go at it hammer and tongs.
Oh, jeez.
And I hate, one, we should, I don't want to talk ill about the dead, but I mean, Don did a lot for me. I mean, because I couldn't drive, right? I was too young to drive. He'd pick me up and we'd go Hamfest or club meetings and whatever. But it got to a point where it's just like, there's a reason why we called him FD. And it was, if you knew it, it's just like, yeah, that's him.
He wasn't a bad guy. He had good intentions, and he sometimes had flawed execution.
Well, he didn't have any execution.
Well, that was the flaw.
It was,
His execution was fatally flawed. He often wasn't able to. He could have a plan or an idea, but executing that idea was really not his strong suit.
no.
And he would.
Well, gentlemen, I'm going to have to run because I got to get to the house. But good to hear you guys this evening. Thanks for inviting me in. It was a pleasure. And you guys take care. Have a good night. And good luck with the rest of the evening. And we'll talk to you tomorrow, hopefully.
Yeah, we're about done here.
7-3.
Yep, we've managed to kill an hour, so I think we've done our job.
All right, guys. We'll see you later.
Thanks for everything,
Take care.
John. We'll see you.
Bye.
All right, John's gone. So I guess we're supposed to find, I don't know how we're going to find Steve on 160 now. Oh, well. We've carried some viewers, which is pretty good. I'm impressed.
I'm glad.
I
By the way,
think I was going to make it an hour.
by the way, in these final minutes,
Yes,
we have yet to hear your exciting field day story. We've heard about John's and being up on Nanny's Mountain and some other stuff, and you heard about me transmitting and receiving with a dummy load. But we haven't heard your story yet.
Oh God, I don't. Man, there were so many because about everyone I would get dropped off, when I couldn't drive or whatever, and I would stay there pretty much all night and get back home. I remember I would get back home after everything was over, probably about lunchtime the next day, or maybe a little earlier in the morning, because they would still do. That's when they still did breakfast out at the club, on Sunday morning. So people would show up for that, and then I'd usually catch a ride home. And I would have been up because I'd been out since, probably noon, 1 o'clock the day before, and been up the entire time. I didn't sleep because, the late night, Haney would come in, and he'd sit there and work CW and tell these old stories, that we've all heard, but he's a great storyteller. So you just have people in there sitting with him, and he's telling these stories while he's sitting over there, with the key, And, that was the thing to watch. But I always remembered I'd get back home and I'd get into bed, and all you would hear would be like CW or noise in your head, and you're so tired that you're not sleepy anymore. You've been there, you crossed the threshold, and you just lay there, and it's like, I can't do it. So you have to get back up till probably about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, then finally you crash. God, I've been a ham since I was 14, and there was many of those, and probably the best, the one we did at Sullivan, being out there all night. Thank God the weather worked out good, because I don't think we had a cover for anything. I don't think there was an easy up. I think there was a table and the antennas, and that was about it. That was probably my favorite field day. But actually, some of the most memorable ones I've had, Mark, have been actually recent. Is when I started doing field day visits, and Bob Bacharach, WA2MF, would ride with me.
Bob is a character. He is absolutely a character.
Bob's he's slower moving now, but his mind is still sharp as a tack, and you never know what the hell the man's going to say. And it was never boring. He never complained. He was always happy, and just what a great guy.
He's a super guy. I was very lucky this spring to have him with me. We activated 4 counties in the South Carolina QSO party.
Yeah.
4 very empty counties. Trying to think: Barnwell, Hampton, Allendale, and Jasper. I mean, he was a trooper. He
was not bashful to eat either at all these. We talked about the food at the places. Oh yeah, we'd sit there. I walked in one time, he's sitting there eating dinner, like burger and all that. I'm like, Bob, we got to go. We got other places we got to hit, man.
Yeah.
and you could bust his balls about it, and he just rolled with it. And that's just one of the things that makes him great. Doesn't take himself too seriously. I'm very fortunate to know him, but having somebody else on that drive, and it was entertaining, and those are probably my fondest field day memories. And I love doing the field day visits. You start out and it's like, oh God, all this driving, but it's fun and it's cool to see. Takes you away from the contest, but it's okay. I got to hop in this year. So it's
I probably put 100 plus Qs in the log. Got a couple hours of operating in. I'll get a couple more before I go to bed. That'll be fine. I'll get up tomorrow morning and do a little bit. And it's different because we're out traveling, we're visiting, which I think is important.
Yeah.
Visits from you, from me, don't get anybody any bonus points. And I hate that, because I think they should get something. I think it's valuable for us, the folks in the field organization, because it helps us understand the people we serve. We get to meet people in the various clubs, learn about the club, about the people, what they're doing. My belief is that makes us do our job better, because these are not just call signs on a list. The club isn't just some name on a piece of paper. We can actually understand who those people are, what they're all about, and that's important, because everything we do is service. We're here to support folks and serve them, and if you don't know much about them, it's hard to do that well. So I find it's time well spent. I think, we'll see how next year goes. Maybe we'll get a chance to do some visits, or maybe we'll do an improved version of this, something awesomer.
For something that came about Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
it's actually it worked out pretty good. I mean, we were able to talk to some people. The 4 o'clock one was fabulous. I know 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock is a little bit later for a lot of people. And, but I know we had Barry Net and we want to give some more time since the contest didn't start till 2. So we said, well, why not 10 o'clock, late shift, or 11 o'clock. I'm sorry, not 10, 11. I'm losing the track of time. But to go on what else you were talking about, it's another event or a date that you can go and hit multiple clubs in one day rather than just waiting for a club meeting. Because let's face it, what's the best you could do if you're just hitting clubs on club meetings? It's probably about 12 in a year. That's if you did one a month. And sometimes, I know with your schedule and my schedule, how that works out or shakes out doesn't always work out to do that. But this is one day that, we divide the state up and we kind of rotate that so everybody gets to see us. I hadn't done the coastal route. I don't think I want to.
A lot of driving. I will tell you that. It's a lot of driving.
In my younger days, not that I'm old, but I have done the crazy trips, St. Louis and back, and not St. Louis, but Indianapolis and back in the same day. That was the last trip I took at that length. And on the way back, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't handle this. And I was in my late 20s at that point. No, I was in my early 30s. I'm sorry. So I don't know how you do all that driving. I there's ways to do it. I think you drive down the day before, you stay the night, and then you get up and get moving. But that's hard. But the other routes, there's 3 of us generally that go out, and if Morgan rides with you, that's another person that gets to be seen, and it's a good event. It takes us out of the contest, but that's all right. We always have the option of participating, sitting down with all the other clubs for a few minutes and working some of them if they'll ask us or let us, or you can do it mobile. We all have HF mobile. I guess we could run mobile.
Well, every 3 or 4 years, I will skip field day and go up and operate with my wife, my sister-in-law, and my sister-in-law's husband. All 4 of us are hams, and we'll do field day, typically 1 alpha, up at their farm in Ohio, and it's kind of fun. A couple of years ago, we went and we took Bob and Morgan with us, which was great because we had 6 operators. That meant only 4 hours, and then we broke it up, and everybody had a lot of fun. And because you're out in the country, the noise floor is low, so even a ZS6 BKW at 40 feet, you'll hear some things because you don't have to deal with all the noise that you deal with in a suburban or an urban environment. So we made a lot of contacts, and everybody had a good time. And of course, field day isn't field day without food. And Morgan and I are always careful to come up with something. If
you want a good story, you need to go back and check out the 4 p.m. stream, which is available on the YouTube channel and the Facebook page. They're up there. You can view those. But Mark tells a very good story about field day food.
Yeah. Well, there. Hey, that's part of field day. It's partly about the operation. It's partly about dinner.
Fellowship. That's what it's about.
Yeah. If you think about it, it's the one event that really brings clubs out. It is the big thing every year. And clubs may not have the resources or the time or the membership to do anything else, but they'll make the effort for field day.
Yep.
And that's one of the great things about field day. Everybody's out, everybody's doing something. And there are a lot of different ways to get field day done. You could stay at home, you could go out somewhere, or like we do, we go to another state, take a 500-mile trip. Field day. Field day is the one thing. If people don't do anything else in the ham radio world, they will get behind field day. And that's why I think it's important. And that's why I like to travel, because it gives me that opportunity to see what people are doing, learn about what they're doing, learn about them, how we can serve them better. And there's always dinner.
It's always food. And people that aren't really contesters will always pop in on field day.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they will. And the funny thing is, field day technically isn't a contest, but it has some of the elements of a contest, so it can be competitive. And some clubs, treat it like a contest and really go all out. There's nothing wrong with that.
Which we talked about in our live stream a couple of weeks ago. So go back and check that out.
Yeah, we did talk about that. So yeah, field day is a bit like a smorgasbord. There's something there for everybody. Smorgasbord, yeah.
All right, Mark. I got to take the dog out and I got to get to bed. So
I'm probably going to prowl around on 160 for a while, unless 6 is still open. Who knows?
I might tune down there to see what's, just to pick up, because that's an odd band. If you pick up something on there, that's always good. For a few minutes.
I've got to. I got to think this through. I had a very odd SWR reading when I got down on 160, and I have a bad feeling that one of the storms we've had recently probably broke that loop somewhere. But that's why you have a matchbox.
There you go. You don't want to be troubleshooting that when it's pitch black.
No, I don't. All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Enjoyed it, guys. Thanks for stopping in, and let us know what you think. If you want us to keep doing that, leave us a comment. And we will be back again with more stuff very soon.
May not be good, but we'll bring you more stuff.
That's right. See ya.